Thus, we wrap up the New Stage trilogy of Precure crossover films with one that I've actually kind of been looking forward to. Well, that I also need to kind of fill in my weekly video gap with all this pandemic stuff going on.
But yeah, while this trilogy has had a couple of different directors with Junji Shimizu and Koji Ogawa, the screenplay has remained in the hands of Yoshimi Narita throughout it. And just like writing nowadays, it's been kind of hit and miss with unfortunately a little more of the latter. Still, this film is often considered not just the best of this trilogy, but also one of the best crossover films of the entire franchise. Do I agree?
Well, again, considering I got pumped this video out within 1 week, let's just take a look at Precure All-Stars New Stage 3.
The final film in this trilogy opened up at a familiar location. Once again, Tenchi-sensei was teaching Precure 101, though this time with a far more attentive Butters and Cartman. Okay, to be fair, they've developed a lot since the last movie, so I'll try to drop that joke. And we do technically have a Butters in this franchise now, too.
Though I still think he sounds like the Japanese dub of Eric.
But yes, once again, blatant Miracle Lights tutorial at the beginning of a Precure film, and the sky is blue, who cares? Point is, these two have become A students following the events of the last movie, even though again, I'm pretty sure they should have been expelled after unleashing an eldritch abomination, but hey, that's the modern education system for you. Anyway, with the Happiness Charge team having recently been formed both in story and IRL, the teacher gave the two a new assignment.
Also, could you please give these meds to their fairy? Hopefully it'll stop her face from distorting all the time. Hopefully.
We then got the opening, which was once again Forever Friends, but since this was the last in the trilogy, they decided to throw in a little Mana and Ronkali for good measure. Yep, Hitomi Nabatame and Megumi Nakajima joined in on the vocals along with Mayu Kudo for this final outing. The two added a nice, more laid-back feel to the tunes, which appropriately show each of the Precure teams in their most casual states. Just having fun through tea parties, dancing, and stealing cakes like Lex Luthor. Overall, good wholesome stuff, and a nice final note to retire the song on. In direct contrast, the movie proper opened with a little girl being chased by...
Monokuma's very, very distant relative. Man, after winning, bears really don't get that much fair representation in media these days, do they?
Thankfully, before Chris Hansen had to get involved, a couple of fairies sucked it up with their Poltergust 3000. Well, to be more exact, these two were a mother and child, and the parent did all of the work. The child's name was Yumita, and the mother was,
Okay, one last Cartman joke.
Meme! My name is not Meme.
Also, since she is going to be a significant side character, it is worth mentioning that this little girl is named Nami, and she was voiced by Ayami Goroki, who was a well-known child actress in the early 2000s. When this movie came out, she was 24, and in fact, that same year, she had also provided the Japanese dub for Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique in X-Men Days of Future Past.
But hey, I'm sure Toei didn't just hire her because she's a pretty face, but rather because she's a perfect match for this little girl. Or she sounds about as out of place as most of the Smash Bros. DLC roster. Seriously, this is exactly why they started hiring actual child actors.
Thankfully, Mini Mystique's absolute lack of sounding anything relatively like a child was made up for by some much more notable voice actresses like Masako Nozawa, Konomi Yoshida, and Fumi Hirano, whom, as we'll soon see, will all play a very big role in this film. Meanwhile, Grell and Ennen arrived at Joe's antique shop, where thankfully the owner was away, probably running a kingdom, but the Doki Doki team were there. They told them about the Happiness Charge team, and as it just so happened, Charles was acquainted with Ribbon and was able to set up a meeting between the two teams. Jeez, this bunny is surprisingly social. Also, I love this little touch of a bashful Makoto and a really smug-looking Davy here. However, things weren't panning out quite as planned, as not only were the Yubis late, but the plot convenience news started talking about kids all over the city falling into mysterious comas. Though, admittedly, I was a little distracted by the fact that this was all being reported on a giant Yotsuba monitor, and the kids were at the Yotsuba hospital.
Yeah, as if it wasn't made clear enough that Alice is the biggest 1%er in this entire franchise.
Ribbon and her constantly mass-shifting head soon arrived to inform the Doki Doki team on why they were late. This ended up attracting the attention of a bunch of cameos as well as a certain someone. But anyway, the reason they were late was because Megumi had also fallen into a mysterious coma.
Considering the villain's motivations in this film, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
I'll bring this more up in just a bit, so just keep that little detail in mind. Anyway, Hime tried to wake her partner up.
Should I consider that a mean face if it wasn't intentionally made by the character herself? Why not?
Since Yoshimi Naita was also the head writer of Happiness Charge at the time, she was able to write her characters pretty much exactly the same as their television counterparts at the time. So Hime was still socially awkward, and Blue was, and would remain, kind of creepy.
妖精の力を感じる
Yeah, keep telling yourself that, Blue.
He claimed that he found some traces of fairy magic on her and sent all the available superheroines to investigate Megumi's dreams. I would make a joke about how ridiculously quick this dude just sends these girls on a potentially dangerous mission to an unknown world, but of course Hime has me covered. Anyway, the dream world they were in wasn't exclusively Megumi's, but rather one occupied by her and all of the Komoto's kids, including Nami. Not that Megumi herself paid any mind, as she was too busy riding on a flying pufferfish, which isn't the safest career to ride on, as she soon found out, and prompted Mana to jump in for the save.
You will be here member number 4558. I don't take no for an answer.
Grell and Ennen also tagged along, which was good because they turned out to be friends with Yumeta. Specifically, they knew each other from the Fairy Academy, though as we would learn later, he ended up dropping out. We also learned that he was a Baku, a sort of mythological dream eater that looks like a tapir, and of course was the basis for the Drowsy line in Pokemon, and a rookie level Digimon.
Yeah, Yumeta, just make sure you don't partner up with some crazy lady who's gonna start up one of the absolute worst Digimon storylines ever.
However, this little guy still hadn't developed the ability to eat dreams, much less the ability to manipulate them on any sort of large scale. And yet, he was hanging out with all the missing kids, whom the Precure finally started to notice. Of course, the real culprit decided to reveal herself at this moment, and it was Ma'am. Yep, she had entered into the dreams of all those kids and abducted them.
Well, I see someone's taking a page out of Scary Terry's playbook.
Actually, in some ways, I'd say what she was doing was much worse, but we'll discuss that more later. For now, she tried to get rid of the Precure, and when they naturally refused, she revealed that she had the ability to not only release the nightmares she had absorbed, but also control them. Thus, the Doki Doki team engaged the bootleg Monokuma in a really well done action scene that took full advantage of this team's varied movesets. Highlight for me being Rika pulling off a wicked reverse Rana. All the while, the Happiness Charge team did absolutely nothing because... Okay, to be fair, I guess Dream Megumi wouldn't have her transformation trinket on her.
But since they didn't really establish it, and is going to play a part in a major plot point, I gotta throw it onto the plot contrivance pile. Hope that doesn't tumble over.
Anyway, while they seemingly defeated the nightmare, as it turned out they were basically immortal and thus needed to be sucked up by Baku. Not that it really mattered, as Mem just opened a hole back into the waking world underneath them. Grell and Enen tried to get Yumeta to stop his mother, but to no avail. To make matters worse, they dropped their Precure encyclopedia, which the mother and son found, and were going to put to good use.
So yes, once again, this stupid book is going to act as a powerful tool for the villain of the film. Y'all should consider switching over to a more secure electronic format, just saying.
But yeah, since this is a crossover movie, Mana suggested they enlist the help of the other Precure teams to save the kids. They didn't think to tell them that the enemy could invade their dreams and that maybe they should drink a few cups of coffee, seeing as how one of their comrades had already gotten trapped in that dream world. Which, by the way, let's address this. How did Megumi end up in Mem's dream prison? Did she just accidentally wander into it, even though the dream dimension seems to be at least the size of a galaxy, if not a whole universe? Or did Mem purposely adopt her even though she was clearly targeting kids around her son's age?
I don't know!
But hey, I guess someone had to fall victim in order to move this plot along. I mean, it's not as though they have any younger Precure on hand they could use. Oh wait!
Yeah, this along with a few other plot holes that I'll get to later does make this film feel like it was a bit rushed, or at least not as well thought out as it should have been. Now, I'll be fair and assume that maybe Narita was under a little bit of a crunch between this and her Happiness Charge scripts, but still it does irk me because there was an easy solution, just reverse a few details. Have Grail and Enen visit the Happiness Charge team first.
In fact, I don't know why the teacher wouldn't know God's address, much less not want to archive the League of Jobbers, I mean the International Cures. You know what, on second thought, let's not open up that can of really confusing continuity in this movie and all that.
Anyway, have the two visit a conscious Megumi and Hime. Ribbon sets up a meeting with the Doki Doki team. They no-show because Aguri is comatose. This would lead them to entering into the dream world through the character who at least physically looks like a child. Yeah, Aguri may try to act mature, but as even evidenced by this movie, she does seem like she would be susceptible to the dream world. It would help to clear up the confusion as to how a 14-year-old Megumi managed to get into essentially a kindergarten.
Unless you're Krimu Sakurano, I ain't buying.
Anyway, Mem used the encyclopedia to locate all of the veteran Precure teams and sealed each of their members into their own little dream worlds. But again, much like this plot device in the last movie, the newest team at the time managed to evade the villain thanks to not having an entry in the book yet, and as I said, they also conveniently didn't transform in front of her.
It's just a good thing we're getting close to the best part of the movie, otherwise I would start questioning why everyone considers this one of the best crossover films of the franchise.
Anyway, as the last existing Precure team, again let's not bring up the Internationals, the Happiness Charge team and the Fairy Academy students decide to infiltrate Mem's dream prison. Of course, they use their favorite pre-card.
見つからないように忍び込む。そういう時は忍者でしょ。
Well, already you're better than a ninja at least.
忍ぶどころか暴れるぜ
However, it still wasn't enough to escape Mem's eyes. Grail and Enen tried to talk things out with their friend's mother, but...
友達夢だから聞いたことないわ。
Going by that statement, I'm guessing Yumeta wasn't around during the events of the previous movie because that seems like something you would share with your mom. Thus, maybe Grail's acting up in that film was the result of Yumeta's sudden departure. It's unfortunately never explored in this film, but it's an interesting thought. Anyway, our heroines tried to take on the nightmares and...
That was a bit anticlimactic.
Yeah, I'm not even kidding. Megumi and Hime were just defeated off-screen and implied to have been totally curb-stomped.
You guys do realize you're supposed to be selling toys associated with these characters, right? Just saying.
Trapped and unable to transform, all seemed lost until Yumeta paid them a little visit. He explained his mother's motives for kidnapping all of the children, and unsurprisingly, it was all because of him. On top of still not having unlocked all of his Baku powers, he had grown depressed over the fact that all of the kids he played with every night would just forget about him the next morning, as most people tend to do when they wake up from dreams. Now, obviously, he could just meet and befriend them all over again, but that just ended up creating an endless cycle where he could never leave a lasting impression on them, no matter how hard he tried, giving his very existence not a lot of meaning to it.
Again, I'd like to emphasize, we're getting into the good parts of this film.
Thus, his mom did the only sane thing and locked them all in an eternal dream.
みんな幸せだよ。何がいけないの？
Oh, I don't know, how about everything?
Yeah, more on that in a minute, but for now, Grell and NN once again tried to talk things out with their former classmate, with the Precure backing them, or rather Hime mostly, as Megumi just backed off after one sentence.
でも、二人とも友達のあなたを放っておけないって言うから。
And I'm just gonna save that clip for when I get back to talking about Happiness Charge.
Anyway, it didn't seem to work, though he did at least return the encyclopedia. Good, now burn that stupid thing considering how much damage it's caused over the course of 2 movies. Though before that, they needed to take out a little present Yumita had left for them. Yep, he had slipped them the key to bust out.
Sometimes my decisions bring disaster. And sometimes they bring a key.
At the same time, Sid Taper was hanging out with the children, and at least had the power to partially make their dreams come true. Partially.
でもいいさ、大人にはなれるもんな。早く大きくなりたいな。
Yeah, just ignore the fact that your voice sounds completely adult.
Point is, the little guy started to realize that he was depriving these kids of their real dreams. Our protagonist further hammered this home by taking him to see the dreams of the sleeping Precure. Each of them were supposedly living out their life's goals. Nozomi became a teacher, Saki was running her family's bakery, and Mana became Japan's PM.
Let me guess, your first order of business is to force Star Twinkle to drop their G-Man subplot.
However, appropriately enough, the one who goes by Cure Dream was the first to see through the illusion, leading into my absolute favorite part of this movie.
夢は叶えばいいってものじゃないよ。自分の力で頑張らなきゃ。
I know this is gonna make me sound like the old man yelling at clouds, but I gotta say, kids these days really need to take these words to heart.
Currently, we live in an age where technology has made our lives infinitely easier, and as someone who does admire technology, I can appreciate this. But at the same time, I have to admit, it's also made us completely soft.
世の中便利になればなるほど人間ダメになる。お前はその典型だ。
All too often, people nowadays act like they're entitled to have everything served up to them on a silver platter, and thus try to take the fast track to their dreams, much like what the Tapers are doing in this film.
But the thing is, a major part about achieving and living your dreams is about taking all of the lumps that might also come with them.
Now, of course, I'm not saying you have to go with the most difficult or inefficient route to achieve your goals, that's just insane. But you also shouldn't do it through absolutely no skill or merit of your own. Otherwise, don't be surprised when you feel unfulfilled after you realize you achieved absolutely nothing. Also, considering the majority of this film's audience were kids with their parents, I hope they also took a little lesson from this, but more on that in a bit. For now, Yumita decided to rebel against his mommy dearest, prompting her to release even more of her evil Ursine army to deal with a couple of fourth wall breakers. Their fight ended up spilling out in front of the kids.
Okay, biggest problem about this film, it promotes anti-bearism. Come on, Precure, you're better than that.
Heck, they even tried to make them look extra bad by having them almost eat the woodland critters. Luckily, sloppily thrown in cameo saved the day and just walked off without even saying a word. Yeah, again, more on that later. I will say, I at least appreciate the fact that Grell and NN didn't try to instantly comfort Yumita, who did absolutely nothing to save them, but rather did the most sensible thing and had him wait on the sidelines. The cries of the children prompted the sleeping Precures into action, but they still couldn't get out of Mem's prisons on their own, which of course prompted Blue to put on his favorite bathrobe and unleash...
妖精たちよ、みんなに頼みがある。
Yeah, let me just get my remote and fast forward. Thankfully, this is a short scene. Okay,
So they wake up, and Godboy does do something legit good, and open portals directly into the dream world. Mind you, it still doesn't excuse the fact that this dude is creepy on a bunch of teenage girls, but let's save that for when we get back to the happiness charge reviews. For now though, it was time for one of the most awesome and hilarious big fight scenes in the franchise. As while we did get cool stuff like Kurumi creating yet another crater, the early formation of the 17 and Up Club, and the OG just going about their Sundays, we also got plenty of Erika faces, Miyuki somehow doubling her memes, that's not the least bit disturbing. And of course this one clip I keep using to prove how manipulative the yellows are. Though seriously, this is fantastic stuff, and if I didn't fear the copyright bots, I would want to show this in its entirety, as it is a great way to close out this trilogy.
Though I do have to ask, did Danganronpa legit steal this?
In the middle of this big battle, the newest Cures found time to confront the big bad of the movie.
ゆめたくんを守りたいっていうあなたの気持ちとってもラブだね
Actually, I think the more proper term you're looking for is coddling.
Yes, unfortunately, the last act of this movie is kind of rushed, and I think scenes like this become more than a little disorganized.
子供たちを閉じ込めることを望んでいるとは思えないんだ
Actually, Yumita seemed like he was kind of on board with keeping the kids trapped until he realized he was preventing them from living out their real dreams, and yet Megumi doesn't bring up how mentally regressive it is to keep kids both in metaphorical and literal bubbles. Thankfully, the real main character, Hime, pointed out pretty much what I just said, which also doesn't exactly match up with what Megumi just said.
Yeah, I'm starting to believe Naruto must have been under some kind of crunch, which prevented her from sprucing up the last act of this script, which I totally understand. I mean, just look at some of the last pages of most of my scripts, but it is still an unfortunate issue with this film.
Anyway, Yumita finally developed both the courage to stand up to his mother and his own butt vacuum. Yeah, I just realized these things are attached to their rears, aren't they?
ほらちょめちょめからうんちが出てる動画を逆に見せてやれ
Mem's day only got worse from there, as the nightmares start to completely ignore her orders due to her having used up too much of her power. The bears themselves does start to coordinate and completely take over the dream world.
Hey Kirby, stop being deserted and get to work already!
No, instead, they had to rely on a different creature with a vacuum mouth. Yumita suggested that he could share his powers with the Precure, allowing them to defeat them. Don't know how that exactly works, but whatever. Realizing how much her son had grown, Mem finally cut the umbilical cord. With that, the little guy started to share his powers through ventriloquism.
僕の力を受け取って
And the Precure started to reduce the population of Carolot. However, the remaining Ursas of course came together to form a final boss monster. It trapped them and tried to destroy the source of the nightmare-killing powers. Grill and Nen tried to protect their friend, and then this happened.
君は誰
Yes, Yumi returned for whatever reason, and I guess she became partners with Grell and Nen because I guess they had miracle lights, and I suppose that's what originally allowed her to become Cure Echo. Oh yeah, did I mention she officially becomes a Precure, as well as the living embodiment of the miracle lights, aka some of the biggest Deus Ex Machinas in this franchise, as she single-handedly weakened the nightmares.
Everybody got that?
Again, I must emphasize how this final act is starting to feel like an unfocused mess. Like, just so many things are happening at once that it's starting to feel like I'm watching the worst parts of Endgame all over again.
As for Ayumi herself, I'll be honest and say I'm mostly indifferent to her becoming Cure Echo again, and having the Fairy Academy students as her new partners. I mean, I certainly don't dislike these three characters like I used to, but as I just said, this whole scene just feels very forced and shoved into the last 10 minutes of this film.
I mean, just imagine if they threw in another cameo cure during this climax. Oh, hi, Yuko.
Yup, after the nightmares took on their final form as Coral-sensei, the Happiness Charge team were tasked with delivering the final blow, and Yuko just shows up and gives them a little boost. And again, she doesn't say anything and just disappears as soon as the battle is over.
Well, there it is.
This is especially weird considering that she was both on the poster for this movie and right there in the opening credits. They really seem to play it up as though she was going to have a big part in this film or something.
And it's also worth mentioning that this movie came out the day before the 7th episode of Happiness Charged aired, so about 2 weeks before Cure Honey, not Yuko, made her actual debut in the show.
I guess in hindsight we could consider this to take place in between episodes 9 and 10 where she was still trying to hide her identity and everything, but still, for the initial theater goers, this must have been kind of confusing. Anyway, they defeated the giant cephalopod, all the kids woke up, I noticed Nami's mom sounds a lot younger than her, the Taper parent and child take Kirby's job, and of course the Precure take a group full together like they did in the opening, which also spoiled the whole Ayumi thing. Nice job there, guys. Also, man, I would have loved to see more interactions between these two meme factories.
So, yeah, that was a really good crossover movie. I mean, I don't think it's my absolute favorite, maybe third after Deluxe 3 and 1, but at the same time, I do think it has one of the best messages of the entire franchise, as well as some great action and comedy that makes it more than worthy of a watch. Just maybe not put too much thought into that final act.
I will say right now, this is probably the most hilarious of the crossover films. I honestly couldn't fit in all of the great visual gags they had in this one film, and I kind of want you guys to see them for yourselves. They also really help to add to the playful dream aspect of this film. And in general, I really love the themes and messages regarding dreams throughout this. We've seen the Precure try to pursue their dreams in their respective shows, so seeing it all bundled up here feels like a good highlight reel that this big crossover takes full advantage of. Now, of course, we're not actually celebrating this, as the Cures themselves pointed out, living your dreams through no efforts of your own is just meaningless. While she's certainly not the biggest threat both in the literal and figurative sense, I think Mem might be one of my favorite Precure movie antagonists ever. I just love how deluded she was to her beliefs that she was only benefiting everyone through her outright coddling and keeping everyone in her bubbles. The fact that she was voiced by one of the most famous anime dream girls just add to this. As a result, we not only got a good message for the kids telling them to actually work towards their goals, but also possibly to the parents as well, in that they have to eventually let their kids go and develop on their own. Speaking of whom, Yumeta on his own was an okay character, not great. He was honestly kind of bland until the final fight, but he at least wasn't annoying like Grell in the last movie, and his arc was good, going from mommy's little boy to leading the charge against the nightmares. Most of all, these two really complete each other, both in terms of the storyline and as a family, so it's probably best to view them as a set. So, yeah, as characters, the Taper parent and child were great. The story surrounding the two was good, but flawed, especially in that final act, as I've said. Yeah, unfortunately, this film falls short of my absolute favorite Precure films because of that. I think the dialogue could have used just a little sprucing up, and of course the cameo cures were just awkward. Again, on their own, Yuko and Ayumi, and even Nami and her weird voice, don't really bother me that much, but when you combine them with some of the messier aspects of this film's script, like the plot holes and messy dialogue, it does prevent me from enjoying it as much as Deluxe 1 and 3, in spite of actually having a better overall plot. Also, yeah, Megumi was completely overshadowed by her partner, which actually gives me more stuff to talk about when we get to part 3 of my Happiness Charge reviews, so yeah, maybe doing this movie in the middle of my reviews wasn't a bad idea. But I digress. While I don't think this is the best crossover film like many think, I still do see it as a must-watch for its comedy, great action, and a powerful message that needs to be shared amongst everyone. Good night to you, little tapers.
And this time I hope you have sweet dreams.
Next time, I'm honestly not sure if I'll be able to get a video out by next week, but if I do, it'll be manga time once again. Now, while I could cover the Star Twinkle manga, money right now is a little tight. I do actually try to buy these books, and besides, I think I have a much better alternative. Look forward to the first 2 chapters next time, and until then though, farewell for now my friends, and... You know what? Hold on a minute. Just have to make sure.